Hello, I'm Don Moores, moderator of this forum of the Democratic candidates for District 1 County Council seat. Here with us are Roger Berliner and Dutchie Trachtenberg, the candidates. This forum is hosted by Montgomery Community Media and sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County. Lena Barnes, the president of the League, is here serving as the timekeeper for this debate. I want to thank everyone here at Channel 21 and League for all the hard work that went into coordinating this forum. I also want to thank the candidates for sharing their time with us. Participating in forums like this is important to give voters the information they need in order to make informed choices. We plan on having a lively exchange of ideas today, with the candidates giving opening statements, followed by questions, where I might also ask a follow-up question. And then finally, each candidate will have an opportunity to make a closing statement. The questions were prepared by the League of Women Voters. The candidates are seated to my left. The order of the opening and closing statements was determined by a random drawing before the taping began. With that said, let's begin the forum, and starting with the opening statement, Dutchie Trachtenberg.
Good evening. Good public policy is a product of balancing competing interests. And we know that that's a problem on the Hill, in the state capitol, and it's also happening in Rockville as well. Too often decisions are not about what's in the public's interest, but really what's politically expedient, and deals are often made out of public view. And the residents of District 1 deserve better than that, and it's time for a change. That's why I'm running. I have a track record of bringing people together and getting things done effectively. I believe in the power of community and compassion because I have in my life experienced the value of speaking the truth, becoming an advocate, and taking on the most intractable challenges. And I've seen this firsthand in the work that I've done around women's issues, mental health concerns, public health issues, and the tragedy of domestic violence. And I also know firsthand the value of private-public partnerships and how vital they are to our community. During my first council term, I used this model to create the Family Justice Center, a clearinghouse facility for domestic violence victims. In less than 5 years, this private-public partnership has served 6,000 families. I actually want to use the same kind of approach and help establish youth resource facilities focused on behavioral health, academic assistance, and social services. And we're constantly reminded by national tragedies why this is an urgent need. For District 1 residents, I pledge to be your representative, understanding that my first obligation must always be to speak for our own backyard first. I look forward to tonight's conversation, and I express gratitude to Channel 21 and the League of Women Voters for the opportunity tonight to speak with all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Trachtenberg. Mr. Berliner?
It has been a privilege to serve the residents of District 1 on the County Council. I am committed to this work because I believe deeply that government can make a positive difference in our lives. And local government matters most. It touches our lives most directly every day. We are blessed in Montgomery County with a good government, not a perfect government, but a good, honest, decent government. My work is focused on one goal: preserving and enhancing our quality of life. How? By focusing on the fundamentals. By standing up for you and against Pepco when their unacceptably poor service threatened our quality of life and life itself. And lo and behold, the lights are staying on longer and things are finally getting better. By leading the fight against development where it doesn't belong, like in the headwaters of 10 Mile Creek, and leading the fight for development where it does belong, like next to the Metro in White Flint, which will bring great amenities and prosperity for our county. By leading our county to adopt a transit-first philosophy, pushing to bring bike share to our county, and adding money to our budget to develop a traffic signal system that can move us 15% faster. By making sure our great school system is fully funded while also protecting our taxpayers. And by taking care of the most vulnerable among us. We are a compassionate community. It is part of our DNA. This is some of what I have done as a legislator, but I have served you in other ways that are even more direct, making sure the potholes get fixed, helping to get a sidewalk built so our children get to school safely, or getting a street light installed, the nitty-gritty of local government. Finally, I believe it isn't just what you do, it is how you do it. And here is how I've tried to do it. With a good positive spirit, with integrity, seeking common ground without sacrificing principle. This is my record. This is who I am. You can count on it. It won't change depending on which way the wind is blowing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berliner. So let's turn to the questions. And Mr. Berliner, this is for you. And then again, we will have 1 minute of response for you, and then I'll turn Ms. Trachtenberg, give you a chance to answer the same question. This is a business climate question. There's much talk that Maryland has had a bad business climate. What specific actions can the Montgomery County Council take to make Montgomery County the place to bring a business?
Well, I've spent a lot of time focusing on that issue. When I was council president, I was pleased to pass legislation that created a small business navigator, because small businesses is the life of our community, and we need to make it easier for small businesses in our county. I also established the Office of Chief Innovation Officer to help our county become more innovative. That's how we attract jobs, by being innovative. I've worked hard for green jobs, because we want green jobs in our county. And I've also worked hard to reduce our tax burden. The energy taxes that our businesses pay is really too much. So for 3 years in a row, I've led the effort to reduce our energy tax for our business community. I regret we weren't able to do 10% this past year, but I pushed hard, and I'll continue to push, because we need a thriving business community if we're going to have the progressive programs that our citizens want and deserve.
Okay, Ms. Trachtenberg?
Well, there's no question that we have a challenge around business development in this state and in this county, and I believe that it's time to have a long-term plan for that kind of development. Yes, it's true that incentives, tax credits for small businesses and certain types of businesses is also an important thing to continue to do, but I think there are two very specific things that need to be addressed. One of them is really working more collaboratively with the state and with the region, for that matter, and bringing business into the county. But the other thing is evaluating the programs that are in place. I'm not convinced that all of them are really as effective as they need to be. And the energy tax that my opponent is referencing, I would remind the viewing audience that what is in the final budget is literally a 7% decrease of the energy tax increase. And I think it's an important point to make, because many people think that that 7% is a 7% reduction in the tax increase itself, energy tax itself.
Thank you. Our second question deals with unions, and Ms. Trachtenberg, this is for you.
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Post often writes editorials about Montgomery County and its unions that imply the unions control the county. How would you respond to these editorials about how do unions work in the county?
Well, it's a good question. There's been a lot of division and a lot of conflict about the public employee unions that we do have in this county. We seem to have a lot of division between our county government employees and those that work for the school system. And that's certainly something that I think the Post has editorialized about. I believe that we need to really work more collaboratively again between the government and the labor community. And I believe that workers' rights are human rights. So we have to have labor at the table when we talk about business development in this county. We have to have labor at the table when we're looking at ways to structurally change government. And my opinion is the way we make that happen is putting everybody at the table, including labor.
Mr. Berliner?
Don, the men and women who serve our county are our workforce, and so important that we have good workers. So all of our energy ought to be to create an environment in which people can do their job in the best possible manner. Now, there are times when the unions and the union officials ask for things that are in their interest, but not in the overall public interest. And so we have to say no on occasion. When we were in a deep recession, we had to say no. We had to reform contracts. When our police chief said we really can't allow our rank and file to run our police department, I need to run our police department, our county council said, you're right, and we needed to change that, and we did. So there are going to be times when we agree with our union leadership, there are going to be times when we disagree. And we're all big people, and we have to sit down always and work it out together.
Okay. Let's turn now to a personal question. We're not getting into your business, but we want to do, running for office, serving, is about collective experiences and looking at the past of what you've done so that we can try to judge, the voters can judge what you're going to be doing in the future. I'm going to start with you, Roger, and again, each of you have this question. Name one experience in your life that leads us to believe that you will make a very good council member.
Well, I guess I would say I've been a council member for 8 years, and my hope is that people know whether I'm a good council member at this juncture in time. But I came to Washington as a young man, and Watergate was actually a formative experience for me. I saw the leading figures of Congress making incredible speeches and working hard to make sure that government of the people and by the people actually works. And then I had the experience of being the legislative director for United States Senator Howard Metzenbaum. And he woke up every day wanting to make something good happen. And he instilled that in me. And then I worked for Henry Waxman, one of my heroes. And he had that same attitude. So if I can be the kind of legislator that wakes up every day and makes something good happen, that's what I try to do.
Thank you, Roger. Berliner, Ms. Trachtenberg?
Well, I grew up in the 70s, and I can remember being moved by the candidacy of Bobby Kennedy and obviously of his assassination, and recognizing how many challenges this country faced. And certainly that's an ideal and a thought that I carried with me through my adult years. I have been a long-term advocate on a number of issues in communities where I've lived, including Montgomery County, where I've lived for over 20 years. And as I said in my opening statement, I've worked on a number of things relating to mental illness, to children's issues, women's issues. And when I was on council, the 4 years I served there, I made it a point to be a strong voice for those that often do not have a voice in government, so that they would never be silenced. They would always have a voice at the table. And I believe I delivered on that the 4 years that I was served on the council at large, and I will do that once again as the council member from District 1.
Do a follow-up, and Ms. Trachtenberg, you get the first crack at this, 30 seconds each of you.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your own strengths. Campaign is it's half about why I should be elected. It's also half about why the other person shouldn't be elected. So, Ms. Trachtenberg, why shouldn't folks support Roger Berliner?
Well, I was prepared to talk about a campaign being about the people that you represent. I'm not sure that I agree that a campaign is actually about the candidates that are competing. But in response to your question, I decided to run in District 1 because I spoke to many people that came from the business community, the labor community, and the one thing that people kept saying to me is they wanted somebody who'd be straight up with them and who would say one thing and do what they said they were going to do. That's why I'm running, and that's why I think I'm the superior candidate.
Mr. Berliner, same question, and Ms. Trachtenberg went over a little bit, so you're invited to go to 40 seconds.
Well, Don, I'm running on my record. I've served my community for 8 years, and I'm proud of my record. I've worked hard on issues that I think are fundamental to the quality of life in our community, for PEPCO or transit, lead on environment. These are the things that matter to me. There are differences between Ms. Trachtenberg and myself. Ms. Trachtenberg's lead supporter is called the Sierra Club, the most vicious organization in the county. That's not my kind of language, and I'm proud to have the Sierra Club's support. Ms. Trachtenberg seeks to overturn the 2/3 of District 1 voters in terms of how our police department is run. So I want to honor our voters and believe we should honor our voters. So those are two of the differences between us.
Okay, let's go to another issue that's of importance in the county, and District 1 plays a role in this. We're the district that has the least amount of affordable housing in the county, but yet it's an issue in the district as well. What action, and I believe, Mr. Berliner, you have the first shot at this. Again, this is a full question here. Affordable housing. What action, if any, should county government take to increase the supply of affordable housing?
Well, I'm pretty proud of the action that I sponsored and took with respect to that issue, which was to focus on our own county assets. We have a lot of county property. We have things like fire stations. And in other communities, we have built affordable housing on top of fire stations. Well, I passed legislation, sponsored legislation, my colleagues passed it unanimously, which requires our county every time they're doing a building to look at affordable housing. And now in the midst of White Flint, we will have a fire station that could have up to 15 stories of affordable housing on it. So that's the kind of effort we need to do. We need to make sure that we use every piece of our county assets to promote this critically important county priority.
Ms. Trachtenberg?
Well, affordable housing indeed is a big issue, and it is in District 1, especially for seniors. I hear this all the time, and it's a huge issue for the mentally ill and those that are disabled as well. And clearly, the council I served on and the current council have struggled with getting to the right amount of money together and being able to really support the programs that are in place as more effectively. And you know, there's no doubt that we need to do more development. It needs to be metro-centered. And I think I'd come back to a defining point, which I continue to raise, which is in order to accomplish this, it's just not the commitment of government, it's also the ability to work with the development community, and that requires working relationships, not contentious ones.
Okay. Let's stay with the housing subject. Ms. Trachtenberg, you've got this, and it's a question about planning and denser zoning. Ben Ross, neighbor, past president of Action Committee for Transit, in his new book, Dead End, writes that owners of single-family homes want to preserve, quote, their privileged place in the residential pecking order, and thus work against denser communities based on smart growth. What place do you think that established single-family residential communities have in the future of Montgomery County?
I have always been very clear that as we develop, grow as a county, and redevelop certain areas, that we honor the integrity of existing communities. I think that is particularly important. And while I've read Mr. Ross's book and we're quite aware of his opinion on this, you know, I believe that older communities and newer communities can coexist. I grew up in a part of New York City where this was just a natural process. We always had new apartment buildings going up, but the neighborhood where my parents' home was located was an established community, and there was a coexistence, and neighbors were good neighbors. And I think that's something that we have to strive for. I believe that I have always spoken to this value, and I will continue to do so when elected to the council.
Mr. Berliner?
Well, District 1 in particular has some of the finest residential neighborhoods anywhere. Chevy Chase, Bethesda, Potomac, Garrett Park, Kensington, Poolsville. We have extraordinary residential neighborhoods, and I have been 100% committed to preserving the beauty and the integrity of those residential neighborhoods. I sponsored in my first term McMansion legislation precisely because we were having new construction taking place that overwhelmed existing neighborhoods, and we needed to protect them. But when we moved into White Flint, for example, and did the White Flint redevelopment, which is going to be just fabulous, we had to work with our surrounding residential neighborhoods and make sure they understood that this was not us versus them. This was not creating an urban node at their expense. This was going to create an enlivened space, and we were going to protect them, and we did. And they are supportive of White Flint because we protected them.
We'll do a follow-up, and I think I'm going to go, Ms. Trachtenberg, I think we'll keep with that same as a follow-up to this and keep with the same order we did for the last question. The follow-up is this. In the 60s and 70s, Montgomery County was at the forefront of preserving open space by creating transferable development rights. It's now ancient history. And I don't hear much about respect of those transferable development rights anymore. None of us do. What we hear is the pressure against the Great Reserve in the northern part of our county that it's been held in abeyance from being developed. We're seeing pressures to develop that now. District 1, Poolsville abuts it, but where are you, Ms. Trachtenberg, on preserving this great expanse that we've already benefited from through larger and more dense development through the transferable development rights?
Well, there is no question that this is a prized jewel in Montgomery County. It's about a third of the land in Montgomery County that we're talking about, and I have repeatedly pledged my support to keep it green and not utilized for retail, housing, etc. I believe there's great potential in the agricultural reserve in terms of economic development. I think there's a lot more that the county can do to actually promote the farming industry there. I am definitely looking in the next term to work with people who live and have businesses in that reserve, because I think that it is a resource for this county and should remain a resource.
Thank you, Ms. Trachtenberg. You've got 50 seconds, Mr. Berliner.
Thank you, Mr. Morse. So let me just say that the agricultural reserve is, as Ms. Trachtenberg said, a crown jewel of the county, and none of us are going to let anything get in the way of that. Transfer of development rights are an important ingredient with respect to that, and we are about to, this summer, review how we stand with respect to transferable development rights. Are they priced correctly? Do we have enough, quote, receiving areas? When we made the change in Clarksburg to limit development and up in that part of the world because we didn't want development at the headwaters of 10 Mile Creek, we eliminated, if you will, a transfer development right receiving area. So we need to make sure that our farmers have enough receiving areas for the trade-off that we created when we effectively downzoned in order to have this crown jewel of the county. And what it does is it allows us to, as you say, focus on the down county, which is where we ought to focus, where we have the transportation infrastructure. Where we don't want is continued sprawl.
Okay. Mr. Berliner, I think you've got the next question, and actually it goes well because sprawl, transit, all of those things go together. Maryland is seeking federal funding, as each of you know, for three transportation projects, two of which are located in Montgomery County. By all indications, it does not seem as if both of our projects will be funded. What are the benefits of each, and which would you support if funding is only available for one? And I'm going to ask you all to please be specific in terms, and please say one or the other if we can, and with the supposition that we can't have both. So Mr. Berliner, please.
Well, I got to say, Don, both of these projects are critical, and I don't accept the operating assumption of the question, which is that we're not going to get funding for both of them. The Purple Line is obviously moving forward first. It is at the head of the queue right now with respect to it, and is just a fundamentally terribly important project. And our 270 corridor has to be fixed, and so we're going to have rapid transit where the CCT is, and that's going to be less expensive. So we have light rail on the Purple Line, we have bus rapid transit when it comes to the CCT, and I feel like we can and will be able to afford both, and we need both. So I'm going to fight as chair of the Transportation Committee, as I did in Annapolis, to get both.
Choose one.
Not gonna.
Ms. Trachtenberg.
Well, I would very clearly choose the Purple Line. We've been waiting for it for a long time. It's a benefit to the community in many, many ways, not just economically. We've got to get people out of cars, and it's the perfect project to bring Silver Spring and Bethesda together. And obviously, we're on track to open it. In terms of the CCT and the bus rapid transit system that Councilmember Berliner has described, yes, it's less expensive, and I simply believe that there needs to be more outreach to state and federal officials to get more of a prioritization around that important project, because clearly it is important. But I'm willing to say that the Purple Line is my top transportation priority.
Okay, thank you. Stay on transportation, and Ms. Trachtenberg, you've got this question to start with. There are lots of transportation projects that need funding in Montgomery County, in addition to those two. Even though you're not delegates, Annapolis plays a big role for the county council. What steps would you take vis-a-vis Annapolis and in the county to get funding for our transportation needs? And would you support Montgomery County getting the authority to raise our own gas tax in order to pay for it?
Well, first thing I would say in response to the question is that, you know, as county government is got to really work closely with our delegation, and we need to have one voice about this, and I don't really believe we have. I think there have been distinct opinions based on geographical location in the county for certain delegations, and I think that we've got to agree on the priorities. And yes, we certainly should have much more support from the state. In terms of authority to raise gas tax, I wouldn't support that. I don't think that that's something as county that we should be looking at right now. I understand there are people that believe that might be the only way that we can fund things, but I actually think we've just got to do a better job of getting the state to do their job.
Okay. Mr. Berliner?
Well, I was pleased that our county took the lead in actually bringing about the transportation funds that we need for our county by supporting a gas tax, and I was pleased that we worked very collaboratively with our state delegation to help bring that about. Montgomery County literally was at the forefront. George Leventhal and I were key in hosting a program down in Annapolis to bring everybody together around this concept, and we worked it very hard, and our delegation worked it very hard, and we produced. And now we do have the funds to move forward. And the next project after the Purple Line and the CCT must be rapid transit. Rapid transit has the potential to transform our community in just such a fundamental way, so that instead of being known for congestion, we can be known as having the finest transit system in the country. That's my objective. That ought to be our combined objectives, to really change the conversation, improve our competitive posture in the region, and make our quality of life so much better.
Okay. Roger, let's come back to you again. You mentioned before, I think maybe each of you mentioned, but I know, Mr. Berliner, you mentioned the energy tax. Current county council just decreased the energy tax. Would you support decreasing or eliminating this tax? How would you make up the lost revenue?
Well, we made a commitment when we passed this energy tax that it would sunset in 2 years. And 2 years came and went, and lo and behold, we were still in the recession. And our county executive said, we cannot afford to eliminate this $117 million that our budget is predicated on. And I was president at the time, and I said, all right, I get that, but here's what we have to do. We have to keep faith with our residents by chipping away at this in manageable bites. And so we did 10% when I was council president. And last year, I was able to bring about a 5-4 vote on reducing it again by 10%. And then this year, we got to 7%. So I believe what our council is seeking to do is to do this in manageable bites and continue to keep faith with our community that we will move towards eliminating this.
Ms. Trachtenberg?
Well, I'm glad the question came up, because this is something that my opponent and I disagree on. I mean, I definitely think the tax needs to be phased out. It is a business killer. It's had a terrible impact on small businesses, and if you talk to seniors, folks that are on a fixed income, they talk about this, they raise it all the time. And while yes, there have been some small steps taken over the last few years to reduce the tax, and this year 7% of the increase of that tax, it's still a burden to most people in our community and even in District 1. And I believe that it has to be phased out, and the council should really work with the executive branch to find a way to do that responsibly over a period of time, maybe 5 years. But it has to come to an end. It's now the third largest revenue that we look at in the county, and it was never supposed to be that when it was proposed, and certainly when I voted for it, I never expected that it would be
Let me do a
written
follow-up
into the permanent
here.
budget.
We're talking about money and budgets and all of that. Mr. Berliner, let's, again, follow-up question, so you go ahead and your follow-up to this. And each of you, you're not going to have a lot of time to elaborate, but I'd like you to focus with specificity. A program that you think should be reduced in funding or eliminated, a program that we are not funding enough and budget needs to be increased. Mr. Berliner, one down, one up in the county budget.
Oh goodness, we just did our county budget, Don. I apologize. We just did it, and it's a $5 billion budget. And it's a good budget because it focuses on the fundamentals. I'm one of those people that believe what our government must do is attend to the fundamentals. So I think repaving our roads and having our potholes is a big deal. We were very good to the most vulnerable among us. We increased funding for health care for the uninsured. We created a new program for adolescents who are suffering from mental illness and having a mobile crisis unit available to them. So I have to tell you, there are undoubtedly programs that could perhaps be paired. Are we the most efficient government in the world? No, we're not. But we are a good government.
All right, Ms. Trachtenberg, you've got 50 seconds on this response.
Okay, well, I actually think one of the places where we need to make far more investment is in technology. And having chaired the fiscal committee when I served on the council, that was always the place where everyone wanted to make cuts. They felt that it was the right place to prevent investments around new computers, programming, whatever. And you know, there are many jurisdictions, states even, that have really dealt with their budget deficits quite effectively by implementing new technology. It improves performance, provides more program efficiency. So this is something that I think the county has to really get into the 21st gear on. I think this is something where we are far, far behind where we need to be. And in terms of the program that was referenced for some mental health services for children up county, I just want to note that since I left council, there has not even been a psychiatrist on contract up county to serve the needs of children who are facing addiction issues.
Okay. Well, much of that is provided within the nonprofit world in social services. So nice segue. Ms. Trachtenberg, you've got this question first. In difficult financial times, nonprofit organizations often do more with less as government funding decreases. Mm-hmm. Should the level of support for nonprofits providing our safety net services be higher in more affluent times to compensate for decreases in the tough times?
I would absolutely say that is a yes, that when I was on council and when I return to council, I will continue to fight for increased funding for services for the vulnerable. We expect nonprofits to do more with less, as you say, and the needs in this county have only increased dramatically. There are many areas of social service needs where we don't have really programs in place. So I would like to see not only more money put on the table, I would like to see a grants office created on the executive side of the street. This is a model that's been used effectively in many jurisdictions. Let's sit down with our nonprofit partners, give them the tools to help with grant applications, both federal and private, and support them with as much as we can with county money. But we have to come up with a better way to support those nonprofits that we depend on.
Okay. Mr. Berliner.
Well, Mr. Bors, we did that in this budget, and I'm proud of our budget. I mentioned before that compassion is part of the DNA of our community, and I think this budget reflects it. We increased funding for our nonprofits. We increased by 1% our funding for them across the board. We increased funding by $1 million for our health insurance program for the uninsured. We increased funding for our developmentally disabled. We increased funding for homelessness. We do honor our nonprofit community because they are and do such good work. Bethesda Cares is one of those that I just care deeply about. Wider Circle, oh my goodness, they do such extraordinary work. The list goes on and on of these communities that really are on the front lines and do great work, and yes, we want to support them fully, and this budget does so.
Let's move now. There's been one subject that has been absent here, and time to move to the subject that occupies half of the county's budget, and that's the schools. School board and the council, Mr. Berliner, I believe that you get this question. More than 50% of the county budget goes to Montgomery County Public Schools. What are your thoughts about the relationship between the council and the Board of Education?
Well, what I know to be true is that we have one of the finest school systems anywhere. I moved here, like many people, because of this school system, and my kids graduated from Walt Whitman High School. We have a terrific school system, and this budget that we just passed fully funds our school system while protecting our taxpayers. So our responsibility, of course, is to the county as a whole, and the school board focuses on just the school issues. So naturally, there are going to be tensions because they're always 100% focused on schools, and we are focused on schools and everything else. But we know that our school system is so fundamental to the well-being of our community and is the gateway of opportunity for our citizens. So we need to have a school system that provides absolutely top quality service to every child in our community, and I think we are helping them do that.
Okay. Ms. Trachtenberg?
Well, there's no doubt that one of the best investments we can make is in education, and I don't necessarily disagree with the funding that the council provided in the current budget, which was the request of the school system and the superintendent. However, I do take exception. I do have a problem with the way that they did it. They actually went into the retiree health funds to a large degree. I think over $30 million was taken out of there. And I don't believe that that was the right way to fund the additional $51 million that the school system was asking for. I actually think it betrays a lack of oversight by the council. It's what many people call the Detroit accounting style, and I can assure everyone listening to this debate that the first thing that the rating agencies are going to ask about when representatives meet with them to talk about the county budget that was passed is going to be, why did we go into a retiree benefit reserve fund and do it at the expense of the retirees and look to fund our operating budget in that manner? That is not sound fiscal management.
Ms. Trachtenberg, let's stay on with the education world. A new question here, and this has to do with the maintenance of effort. A messy subject, to say the least.
Yes.
The current council just funded the Board of Education budget at a level higher than the state required maintenance of effort level. Should the council fund at a level higher than the maintenance of effort always, never, or it depends?
Well, I think my answer to this would be it depends. It depends on the impact that occurs on other agency budgets. Although again, as I stated in the earlier question, I don't have a problem with what went on this year. There are many people out there that say that the maintenance of effort law needs to be done away with. I don't see that happening from a pragmatic political standpoint. I think perhaps there are some ways to amend it, but I do think there are structural issues about the way that we do fund schools, and there are clear conversations that need to occur between county government and the school system. Clearly, education is not a luxury. It's something that we need to provide to children here in this county, and we have a myriad of challenges facing the school system, and they only grow each year. So it's clear the investments need to be made. So at this point, what I would say is that I am not unsupportive of what we did this year in the budget, but I'm not supportive of how we did it. And I would like to say that I would be flexible about this, but it's going to be dependent on what other needs exist at certain times.
All right, Mr. Berliner, go over a little bit.
Mr. Moores, actually, your question isn't quite accurate. We did provide full funding. We did not exceed maintenance of effort. And that's why the Washington Post editorialized in favor of what we did and how we did it, because we did protect taxpayers. We were able to give them $52 million without exceeding maintenance of effort. And so it was creative, and I think it was something that our school system embraced, that our county executive embraced, that our county council embraced, and it was the right thing to do because our school system has challenges and needs these dollars. And we now have time to work through the maintenance of effort law, which certainly should not be done away with. But even the superintendent of schools acknowledged that there can be tweaks to the law that make it more manageable. And how does it need to be more manageable? It needs to be more manageable in bad economic times. In good economic times, our county has been exceeded maintenance of effort by more than $600 million. We don't want this law to get in the way of funding what our school system needs. And so we're going to continue to have that conversation going forward.
Okay. We are fast approaching the bewitching hour here, so I'd like to turn this in just a 30-second question or answers, if you could. We have the most diverse community college, one of the most diverse public school systems in the country, How should the county respond to the economic and social needs of our increasingly diverse population? I'm going to have you, Mr. Berliner, 30 seconds.
Well, I think we are. I mean, I think we are talking about programs that absolutely reach out and make sure that every part of our community is touched and is helped by government. So diversity is a great strength of our county, and Montgomery College is one of those terrific institutions that we funded 99.9% of their request.
Ms. Trachtenberg?
Well, I think that first of all, we need to have school-based services, which really are not up to par. They're not what we simply do not have a system of them throughout the county schools. We also need to have youth facilities for kids who have special needs. I talked about that in my opening statement, and I would definitely like to try to create a private-public partnership that would make these centers available in various parts of the county. I think they're critically needed. But I also think that there are a lot of kids who probably would benefit from trades training and some interaction with the labor community.
We've come to an end of our time. I'd like to quickly now turn to the closings. Mr. Berliner, you are first up. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this debate. I hope it has informed you as to the choice you have on June 24th. And thank you again for having given me the privilege of representing you these past 7.5 years. I have returned that honor by working hard for you, working hard to fulfill local government's most fundamental obligations, to make sure you are safe, to provide a world-class educational system, to fix the potholes and improve your daily commute, to honor our environment, and to take care of those less fortunate among us, to name just a few. And to do all of this in a fiscally responsible way. I have a record of producing real results, results that matter, getting Pepco to finally get better, embracing a sustainable future, reducing taxes, investing in transit, making our county more nimble and innovative. I stand behind that record. I have been consistent. What you see is what you get. You can trust it. And I would like to think that these qualities are what have earned me the support of an extraordinarily broad coalition of organizations, elected leaders and community leaders, the Sierra Club, teachers, the National Organization of Women, and the Gazette, just to name a few. But it shouldn't surprise you that there are some special interests that aren't happy with me. The people who wanted to pave over 10 Mile Creek want me out and are supporting Ms. Trachtenberg. The people who want to overturn the will of 2/3 of District 1 voters and the judgment of our police chief want me out and are supporting Ms. Trachtenberg. Well, I can live with that. I see this job as not catering to special interests, but standing up for the larger public interest. And I have done that to the very best of my ability. So if you want someone who can bring people together, stand up to the special interests, help us through the challenges of change while preserving the quality of our neighborhoods, and get the kind of real results that I have produced, then I ask for your support. We have work to do together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berliner. Ms. Trachtenberg, you get the final word.
Thank you very much. What I've learned from people in District 1 is that they're tired of politics. They just need for their public officials to focus and get things done. They don't want candidates to behave like politicians who spend their time horse trading to get themselves reelected. And over the last few months, I've ignored the quiet whispering about my recovery from breast cancer. A few weeks back, I even had to ignore the fact that my opponent saw fit to go to my son's program at a public event, asking residents and staff if he lived there. This, no doubt, is a total invasion of his right to privacy as he struggles with mental illness. And this week, regrettably, I heard from supporters that a negative push-poll against me was being done in the district by my opponent or one of his supporters. These tactics illustrate what is fundamentally wrong in today's politics. I've spent 25 years working in the community as an activist and elected official. I've always put people, not politics, first. I've worked hard and effectively on women's issues, public health issues, domestic violence issues, and the rights of those who often have no voice. During a turbulent fiscal crisis, I worked closely with the executive and the council to maintain our AAA credit rating. I always was pragmatic, direct, and honest, and as many of you know, that wasn't politically expedient. However, people know me as a person of my word, a fighter, someone who doesn't shy away from a debate if it's necessary. And right now, a debate is necessary. In District 1, we've got a myriad of challenges to address, and it's going to take leadership, tenacity, integrity to help people to come together and create a community that sustains all working families. I'm a mother, a social worker, an advocate, and a fighter. Vote for me, Dutchie Trachtenberg, for Montgomery County Council, District 1, on June 24th. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. I also want to thank the candidates once again. This forum is just one of the many programs that Montgomery Community Media is hosting with the League to prepare residents of Montgomery County for the upcoming primary election. Go to mymcmedia.org to see the program schedule for this debate. The program will also be available on YouTube on several fronts. I want to remind you that the primary election this year will take place on Tuesday, June 24th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You may also vote early starting on Thursday, June 12th at sites around the county. The Board of Election website lists these locations. Voting is a great privilege in this county. Please use that privilege and vote. Goodbye.